Welcome to Engineer Your Space. Today I'm going to show you how you can take plain, ordinary bookcases and turn them into a dividing wall that's not only stylish but also really functional. For my project, I'm going to be using Billy Bookcases from IKEA. Now there's a few reasons why I chose them specifically. They're really affordable, narrow, and also come in multiple heights. I'm also going to be using grass cloth, and I'm super excited to be using grass cloth for this project because I've always wanted to put that on my walls, but I've never been allowed to because I've been renting most of my life. So I'm going to show you how you can use grass cloth on these bookcases. So here's the plan. I'm going to create an entryway and a separate bedroom by adding 2 bookcases here to make up my dividing wall. I'm going to use a tall bookcase next to the wall with the shelves facing the bedroom to act as a nightstand and also to display things. The shorter bookcase is going to face the entryway, and that's so I can have storage for my shoes. The grass cloth is going to go on the back of each bookcase to hide imperfections, and so they can look a little bit more like built-ins. So let's get started. So here's one of the Billy bookcases that I've already assembled. Because I'm using this bookcase as a wall, not only am I going to see the front of it, but I'm also going to see the back of it. And because this is designed to go up against the wall, the back really isn't pretty at all. Let me show you what it looks like and how we're going to fix it. So here's the back of my bookcase, and indeed, it's really not pretty. You have tape here and here. You have these rough edges all the way around, and just paint alone wasn't really going to solve this problem. So I researched a couple of options, one of which is textured wallpaper. It comes in many different raised patterns, all of which hide imperfections really well, and you can also paint over it, which is great. But like I mentioned before, I've always wanted to use grass cloth, and let me show you what that looks like. It has a really organic and natural look that I love, and the raised fibers and patterns are also really good at hiding imperfections. Grass cloth is also eco-friendly because it's made of natural fibers like hemp or silk. I went with a natural jute grass cloth so that it would blend in really, really well with my walls. It can be a bit pricey, so I got this roll, which is a double roll, for about $45 online. The tricky part with grass cloth is it takes a little bit more preparation to put up. It doesn't come with any glue on the back, so you have to glue it, and on top of it, it's really good to prime the surface. So I decided to use this great universal primer, and this primer is for all surfaces, and what's great is you can use it for wallpaper, but you can use it for any other product that you may have. So let's get started. I'm using a small brush because I don't want to put any primer on the inside of the edge here. The main reason being that I'm not going to put any wallpaper there. I'm going to just cut up some pieces of grass cloth and just paste that here separately, so it'll make it a little bit easier. So I've just finished putting on the second coat of primer, and it doesn't take a long time to dry at all, so it just gives us enough time to cut the grass cloth to fit onto the back of the bookcase. Now the roll that I got is 36 inches wide, which is great because my bookcase is 31.5 inches wide, so I'm not going to have to worry about matching the pattern of multiple strips. Perfect. Now before you cut the paper, you need to measure the length. And I'm going to measure a few inches longer than I need just so that I can have some room to play. Now for the width, I'm going to cut the exact amount that I need, 31 inches. To trace my line, I'm using a T-square. What's great about the T-square is that it allows me to make sure that I have a nice 90-degree angle. So now we're ready to put the glue on since the primer is now dry. So let's get to it. I want to talk a little bit about this glue because you really have to pick a glue that's right for grass cloth. Not all wallpaper glues will work. If you don't get the right kind, it can stain your grass cloth and it could make it look really ugly. So make sure when you go to the store, you tell them that you're putting up grass cloth and they'll direct you to the right kind of adhesive. Mine is transparent and has low water content. That's the best kind of glue to use. So the key is to cover the entire piece of wallpaper and make sure you don't miss any spot, because that's really going to create some air pockets if you don't. And the other thing is you need to let it dry for a couple of minutes before you put it on the back. Now I know that's counterintuitive, I want to put it up right away myself, but you need to wait till it's tacky to the touch so that it can adhere much better. It makes a huge difference. Now for this project also, when it comes to glue, I like to use gloves. It's best to not get exposed to that. Now you're putting on the glue on the smooth side, of course, of the grass cloth. Now make sure that you put on the glue in a consistent fashion, going up and down, making sure that you don't miss any spot. Now it's always good to have a drop cloth or something underneath this so that you don't get glue all over your floor. You want to make sure that you're careful so you don't get any glue on the other side, because that's going to stain the paper. I'm going to let this dry a couple of minutes, not too long. And soon the moment of truth, putting it on the back, let's see how it fits. So here goes. You have to make sure that it's snug against the edge and straight. And then you also have to take out all the air bubbles. So I had cut my piece of grass cloth a little bit too long, so here at the bottom I need to trim. I'm going to use an X-Acto knife to do that. Now you have to make sure to use a really, really sharp blade and go really, really slowly. Otherwise you run the risk of fraying the bottom. So here goes. So here's the back of my bookcase, all finished. As you can see here, the edges are also finished with grass cloth. I just did that by cutting strips to fit the width of the edge, and then putting the adhesive on and putting it on much like I did the back here. And then I just used my X-Acto knife to trim off any excess that I might have had on the sides here. So now that it's all covered up, it looks a lot more like a nice wall and a lot less like the back of an ugly bookcase. The grass cloth completely made the tape marks disappear, and now it's one even beautiful surface, which is going to blend in really nicely with the rest of my walls in my apartment. So I need to get started on the taller bookcase, and once that's done, I'm going to show you how to put the two of these together to make a wall. So here I am in my newly created entryway. And the way that I configured my wall is first by putting the tall bookcase right next to the wall here, so that when you come in, it really gives you the impression of coming into an entryway. It really does look like a wall. So you'll notice here that there's a different treatment on the edge. And I just wanted to try something different, make it look even more so like it was fully covered in a wall. So to do that, what I did is I cut strips of grass cloth, just like I did on the other one, except that I cut it large enough to cover this edge here and the one on top. And to make this work, basically what you need to do is take the strip like this and you just preform it on the edge to get the shape. And then you take it off and you bend it even more to make a crease. Grass cloth doesn't really want to bend like this, so this step is really important to make sure that the grass cloth stays put on the edge when you're gluing it. So then you put the glue on, wait for a few minutes so that the glue gets tacky, and then you just glue it like that, section by section. You just have to be very slow and patient with this. So you can do that for this shorter bookcase, or you can go with the other option that I had before, whatever you want. Another thing I wanted to add to this to make it even more functional are hooks. And this is a great way to keep things off the floor. When I walk in, I can just hang my coat, my purse, and everything's neat and tidy. Now the trick to installing these hooks is finding a shelf on the other side that you can screw them into. Because the back of this bookcase is very thin, it's not solid enough to support a hook, especially not if you're going to hang a coat or anything even somewhat heavy on it. To make sure that you're going to hit the shelf, you need to measure the distance from the top of the bookshelf to the middle of the shelf that is closest to the height where you want your hooks to be. Then you measure that same distance on the back of the bookcase and mark the spot. Then you need to make a pilot hole. You only nail it in enough to make a hole, but not too much so that you can't take it out easily. Doing this makes putting in the screw much easier. One of the things that you really have to be careful of with these tall bookcases is anchoring them securely to the wall. Because they're very narrow, they have a tendency to topple over, so you want to make sure you prevent that from happening. IKEA provides this bracket along with a screw and a washer with each bookcase to secure it to the wall. The first thing that you're going to need to do is secure the bracket to the top of the bookcase. Now it's important that you line up the bracket with a stud in the wall, because that's going to give you the maximum support and also allow you to secure the bracket to the wall just using a screw and not having to use any special type of anchor. If you don't have a bracket, you can use an eye screw. You secure it to the top by twisting like this, lined up with a stud. Then you put a washer on the screw and you screw it into the stud, but you have to go through the eye. This method will work whatever bookcase you're using. If you're not sure if you have a stud next to your bookcase, just talk to your local hardware person about what you're doing and they'll point you in the right direction. So now my taller bookcase is nicely secured to the wall. It's not going anywhere, which is good. Now in my design I also had a smaller bookcase which I put right next to the taller one. Unfortunately I don't have a wall that I can anchor this bookcase to, so I needed to figure out an alternative solution. And what I decided to do, because I didn't want to have a bracket here showing at the junction, it wouldn't look very nice, I'm going to use instead a screw here that I'm going to put through these holes that are there for the pins that you put the shelves on. Now you just have to make sure that the screw you're using is long enough to go through the thickness of both bookcases, but not too long that it'll go through on the other side. And I'm just going to use a drill. And now my bookcase isn't going anywhere. My entire wall is secure, and see, it's not going to topple over. So you can see that for the short bookcase, I put the shelves facing the entryway. And the main reason I did that was I needed a place to put my shoes and my mittens and scarves and things like that in the winter. Now, I didn't want everything to be just out there messy for everyone to see. So I'm going to put everything in these fabric cubes that I got at Target, and they're super inexpensive, maybe $10 for 2 or something like that. And what's great is they fit perfectly in. They're just the right depth, and it's another way that you can bring color into your room, into your entryway, without paint. I think it's just a great way to add a little more personality. You can also use wicker or leather baskets if that's more your style. Another option to hide the clutter is to add wood or glass doors from IKEA that work with these bookcases. One of the reasons I did this dividing wall was obviously to give myself an entryway, but it was also to provide a separation between the entry and the rest of the apartment and my bedroom. So let's go on the other side and show you what that looks like. So here I am on the bedroom side of my dividing wall, and you can see that the shelves here are really useful to have. It gives me a place to put my alarm clock, my glass of water, stuff that I would normally put on a nightstand, but here I just don't have room for that. I just have room for a little stool to put my lamp on. So having these shelves is really handy. It also gives me a place to display my things. Since I don't have a lot of room in my studio apartment, creating areas like this for display is really nice to have. The other thing that I did here that I didn't do on the shorter bookcase is that I put some grass cloth on the back using double-sided tape. I did that for a couple of reasons. One was to really make it look more like a built-in. It just gives it a look of seamlessness from the shorter bookcase here to this one. It makes it look like one unit. And I find like the other thing that it does too is it makes the objects that I'm displaying stand out a little bit more. Well, I hope you've enjoyed seeing how plain, ordinary bookcases can be transformed into a stylish and functional dividing wall, giving me a place to hang my coat, put my purse away, and also gives me a wonderful separate bedroom that's very distinct from the rest of the apartment, and it's a really wonderful place to relax at the end of the day. And I hope it's giving you the inspiration to do something similar or giving you some ideas to do something that'll work in your space. See you next time.